So I'm really excited to have CFL Hall of Famer Tony Gabriel joining me today. And Tony and I have something in common. We're both big Terry Foxers. And Tony reached out to me to see how we could get Terry Fox on the $5 bill. Earlier this year, the Government of Canada put out a request for Canadians to nominate people. And Terry ended up in the top 5 or top 8. So Tony, thank you for joining me to chat about this. It's really exciting. So what inspired you to push to get Terry Fox to be the one that's actually featured on the new $5 bill?
That's a great question. That goes back 40 years, Pam, where I had the fortune and the honor to meet Terry Fox on Canada Day 1980. And this is at midfield before our game when I used to play with the Ottawa Rough Riders. And somehow I must have been an offensive captain that day that allowed me to be at center field with Jerry Organ, our kicker, and Terry Fox had arrived, having come that far already on his journey of the Marathon of Hope. And I told him then to this young man, 21, who had run all that way so far on his one good leg and the one prosthetic leg, hopping each day, doing a marathon. He, in my mind, was my hero. And it came to an article that Scott Radley did in The Spectator just in September. He had been talking to Terry Fox's press agent, Bill Viggers. And Bill told him that I had inspired Terry on his run from Ottawa that day. And strange things happened with that article, and I just felt shivers, Pam, that I had no idea the effect that I had on Terry. So each day from my apartment here in Burlington, my hometown, I go up along Lakeshore to the Spencer Smith Park, and I couldn't believe what I saw. It was a marker, a kilometer marker for Terry Fox having been there July 13th. Just a dozen days later, in 1980, he has stopped in my hometown at marker 3,582. I remember it, and took a picture of it. And so I'll get to the point where I called Craig Gardner, who heads up as chairman for the Terry Fox. I think it was called a virtual run this year because of the pandemic, and asked if I could get involved. I felt instilled. And from that September 20th Sunday afternoon, realizing this had reinvigorated me about what Terry Fox really meant to me back then, and brought it home that I needed to get involved when I saw Terry Fox being one of the 8 finalists for the newly proposed $5 Canadian bill. I wanted to try to do something in his honor, and I suggested the petition, and that brought you and I together through Craig Gardner, and I think it was Karina Gould's office as well, to guide me along the path in getting this e-petition started to try to get Terry as the finalist into the end zone ahead of 7 other worthy candidates. And I just feel so excited in finishing my reasons why to tell you that 855 have signed up with us so far, Pam, and I thank you for sponsoring this in Terry's honor.
Well, and it's been less than a week too, Tony, since the petition went live. So I wanted to show you, I found this. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a book I've got about Terry Fox. and it's got a bunch of his journal entries in it.
I've
So
never seen that.
I don't know if you can see that or not, but that was the day at Lansdowne Park.
Unbelievable. That's nice to have as a
So,
memento.
so what he said that day on July 1st was, I went to the Ottawa, Saskatchewan football game where I kicked off the opening ball to a standing ovation. After that standing ovation at the CFL game, I could hardly believe it. It makes me feel like people really care about what I'm doing and that it's all worthwhile. Because, you know,
That's
before,
wonderful to hear that. I've never seen that, Pam.
isn't that cool?
It
Who was
really
number
is.
71, Tony? Who was number 71 on your team? Do you remember?
Yes, Jerry Organ, our kicker.
Okay.
So
So
he
was
did the ceremonial, Terry Fox did the ceremonial kickoff, but somehow I was at the center field with them. As I said, I must have been we used to choose a captain for the offense and one for the defense. And somehow I was chosen that day, and well, I'll always remember it. And to know that he died for the cause. You know, that later in that year, he was given the Lou Marsh Trophy on, I think it was December 18, 1980, chosen as the best athlete in Canada. And it's wonderful since then, his legacy, having raised over $800 million for Canadian cancer research.
Well, and you know, Tony, you and I talked about this, that Lou Marsh Award, but I had heard that of all the awards that Terry got, and he got many, he really treasured the Lou Marsh Award because it recognized his athletic abilities.
Mhm.
And I think when you spoke to him as an athlete, and anyone who remembers you playing football remembers that you were truly a CFL great. I mean, if I can remember you as a player,
Thank you.
for someone of your stature to recognize Terry as your hero, I'm not surprised that he was inspired by that. And, you know, he'd been driving across Canada with his best friend Doug in a van, just the two of them, coming
Amazing.
through Quebec where almost no one came out to see them, and how he found the
Sad.
inspiration to get up every morning. And, you know, I've got a poster here. It says, today I got up at 4:30. As usual, it was tough. But he got up every day and he did it. And then crossing that Ontario border and coming to that Ottawa Rough Riders game was a big deal for
Mhm.
Terry Fox. And you know, I'm not surprised that you inspired him at the time, but it is pretty cool.
Well, it's just amazing to see, you know, he was only 21. And from there, I understood, Pam, that he went to Toronto first and got a great reception. And, you know, we loved hearing that. But, you know, I've participated in a lot of Terry Fox runs over the years, but it all seemed to come home, strangely, 40 years afterwards, to learn of some of the things we've shared. And it makes me feel, you know, very purposeful now that we can honor Terry, whose success then in showing us what it was to be a true Canadian hero, and the effect of all the great Canadian cancer research. I think you know this, if I can add this to your listeners today, that, you know, I was 11 years old, young, when I lost my father to lung cancer. And then, you know, later on when I was with my youngest, married, and then had my youngest son, Shane, he was diagnosed with leukemia, as you may know, in 1990, and just at age 10. And it was through the knowledge at that time that they found out that he had the rarest form called B-cell leukemia, that he was saved in doing the right type of chemotherapy at that time. Shane's now 41. And it's a blessing, you know, that we had all that success back then. I lost my brother, eldest brother, Joe, who really had spurred me on to chemical engineering at Syracuse University when I got my athletic scholarship back in the 70s. Late 60s, before I started playing football in 71 in the CFL. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed in late-stage pancreatic cancer, and we lost him in the family quite quickly over probably a half a dozen weeks. But a decade or two later, and all the research that they've done for pancreatic cancer, I lost my dear friend and mentor, David Gasby, my lawyer, last year. But he was diagnosed some 16 months earlier. And it reminds me of Alex Trebek as well, who just passed away, that through the miracles of the latest developments, latest discoveries, they were able to live a lot longer. And it's with that hope that we can continue this for future young generations ahead to know who Terry Fox was on the back, putting him on the back of the $5 bill, hopefully, that he is a true Canadian hero that we can honor for years to come.
Well, I sure hope you mentioned hope, Tony, and you know, it was called the Marathon of Hope, and Terry, I talk to a lot of school kids in my role as MP, and I always find a way to talk to them about Terry because, you know, you mentioned how young he was. And I think sometimes people forget that. I've got a t-shirt and on the back, it says at 18, he was a student. At 19, he was a cancer patient. And at 21, he was a hero. I mean, he was a young kid, right? He wasn't much older than the kids I speak to in high school when he decided he was going to run across Canada. He was a good athlete, but he wasn't a gifted athlete. He had to work really hard. He tried out for the basketball team. He didn't make it. He decided that he was going to go home and work hard. I mean, that determination that he had, I think, is what played a role.
Grit and determination, and day by day to do that. You mentioned getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I didn't realize that, but that makes sense in trying to get 26 miles or so done each day. The fact is, it makes every Canadian, it's so inclusive of the things that he did. Didn't matter gender, age, backgrounds. He did it for all Canadians. Truly, I can stand, when I think of Terry, he makes me so proud to be a Canadian.
Me too. And when you land at Pearson Airport, in the international airport, when you come down the escalator, you see lots of geography type scenes, like nature scenes. And then you see Terry Fox. You see the bonhomme de neige for Quebec, but Terry Fox is there. I think there's no more iconic Canadian. And I think he embodies all of the values that we admire in our country. You know, he was courageous. He has hope. He was determined. But he was also a little bit stubborn when he needed to be. And I think as Canadians, we know that we can be a little bit stubborn, but only when really needed, right? So I think Terry sort of embodies all of those qualities that we just love as Canadians. And
at the same time that he died for us, in a sense, and he asked that this should continue. And his legacy in the 40 some odd years and counting, that, you know, people have taken up the cause. And I sit here and I believe in miracles, Pam. And it's with all of the great improvements, discoveries that they've made along the lines, especially of pancreatic cancer and lung cancer that I've mentioned. And this is continuous. You know, it stands as a true measure for a lot of young people out there. They can emulate Terry and all his efforts. he spoke for all of us.
Well, so Tony, we've got this petition going and it closes on January the 2nd.
Right.
When we post this, we'll include a link. We want everybody to get in there and sign it, right? And share it with their friends.
Well, if they feel so inclined, please get other family and friends, and we would like to get this into the thousands in front of Chrystia Freeland, our finance minister's office. I believe she's going to be making the final choice out of the 8 shortlisted great names that will be done early in 2021. And it's with that hope that we can express to her office and let her know we have tremendous support across the whole country for Terry, and just wonderful that people feel so inclined to join us.
Well, that's great, Tony. This has been an absolute treat to chat with you, and I can't thank you enough for taking this on and leading the charge for the petition, and really raising awareness about Terry Fox and the good work that the Terry Fox Foundation continues to do. But let's get Terry on the $5 bill.
I feel so lucky for a guy that out of a family of 12, from Burlington, that I went out the first time and I couldn't even make a football team for my Burlington Central High School. And the success that I had, and you mentioned about the Grey Cup catch, people talk about the catch in '76. This cannot compare. This feels so fantastic if we could do justice, to have Terry with us on our. I'll be carrying $5 bills instead of 10s.
Me too, and you're going to make me try. You're going to make me cry, Tony.
I'm emotional right now. I know you are too. You've been working with the Terry Fox Foundation for the last 20 years, I believe.
Yeah, pretty well.
You were instrumental in getting, I believe, it's just incredible. I think it was $150 million over 5 years for the cancer centers. I can't thank you enough for all your efforts. And then today, of course, on behalf of Terry Fox and his family out there on the West Coast, to know that, we're doing everything we can to bring it to fruition, get him into the end zone ahead of the other 7 early in the new year for Miss Freeland's final okay.
Well, if anybody can get it into the end zone, Tony, it's you. So thanks a lot.
Well, nice to be on the team with you, Pam.